on a national scale, where customers can get this one-off pizza where, it's amazing. It is. It does open the door for so many exciting opportunities.
I sent a dough bros kit to Inishmore during the first lockdown when you guys kicked off, and it was so funny because the boat was going between the 3 islands, and they were so embarrassed because the boat had to come into Inishmore with the dough bros kit. That was the only thing that was on it, and they're like, "You won't be forgotten." Let's just say they got their pizza, and that's what matters. And for you, Grania, scaling up and then taking on staff. So Grania went to NUI Galway and studied science. We'll leave it there. But now, like you started off with your own inspiration, and then you built up, and now you're hiring. And how are you finding that scaling, like in the west of Ireland, in Kilcrease? Is that where you are? Like finding staff and all that. How's that going for you?
At first, I was conscious of taking people on because I was quite wanted control of everything. But my very first employee that came on to help me, his name was Andrew Ryan, and he's actually a pastry chef that was unemployed this time last year and just said, "I need something to keep me sane. Can I help out?" And I said, "Absolutely." So he jumped on. And then with the amount we were making, we needed a packing team. So I got a few local students, people to come in at the weekend to help us pack the chocolates and also pack the orders. And then we've just kept growing from there. That's when we've taken on admin, and now we've sales team as well. So it's just keeps growing naturally. It's been quite hard to adjust and kind of to manage everyone, to change from being the person that's in constant production all the time to the person that's managing a few different teams. It has its own challenges, but it's also great, and it's great to see everyone working. But what's really important for me is keeping the friendliness through all the teams, keeping everyone getting on really well, trying to do bonding exercises or things that keep everything really strong, because the strength in the team is what makes everything happen, and it's thanks to them that we can produce all this chocolate and that we can ship it out across the country and even across the world now. So it's not just me, it's the entire team, and it's everyone working together. It's really important. And
it's really interesting because like you're creating jobs in Kilcrease, which probably could do with the employment, which is fantastic. That whole rural Ireland lift, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The rural Ireland, it was quite a challenge at the start, but what it did allow me that opportunity to start a business, and especially because of COVID, because I would never have thought that I could have set up a business online. And my dreams was to have my own business, but it was like a pastry shop or something that would be on Shop Street in Galway or on a little shop front. I never thought I could have an online business, and that gave me that opportunity. And it meant that because I could do everything remotely and because we could do it all from behind a computer screen, it just worked really well.
Yeah, it's been such a fun, like 16 months, it's just crazy. June, what do you think, because like having such a phenomenal community, what are the lessons that can be transferred to the Armada or hospitality on how to motivate your community? You said there's no bad, what is it? There isn't a negative vibe in the tribe. Like, how do you translate that into HR?
Probably about the people you surround yourself with. And like you said, keeping them motivated and just finding your tribe, finding the right people. And I think you can take it from there.
Yeah, and then in the hospitality, do you find we'll put your Armada hat on?
Yes.
But how is staffing? Is it hard to recruit now? Is
Absolutely, and hospitality is very difficult at the moment because of the unsocial hours. I think people are looking for 9 to 5 Monday to Fridays. You probably know from
absolutely. I know all about it.
Yeah. So it's hard. So you have to offer incentives and better working environment, I think, and that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure hopefully there's lots of people listening in who will know of students who would like some work, and they can get in touch with any of our panelists here today. Yeah, for sure, because it's fun, right?
Absolutely.
And then I guess the focus on your customers, Kevin. So the way I do feel like I find in the Portershed that as people return, some of them are more nervous than others. So how have you had to train the teams to adapt to that customer coming in and the different levels of comfort? And
I suppose and obviously up to recently, like that thing of when you come into any of our shops, you just have to stand at the till, order. But that social interaction was probably what some people were craving. Some of our regulars that are regulars for years and years. So we're coming in and you're having a chat. But then all of a sudden, the next person comes in to get their coffee. They're like, okay, I'll just wait over here. So the connection was kind of lost a little bit. So we're getting that back. And I suppose for staff to gauge, I haven't seen Ronan in a long time, or whatever it is, and you're kind of going, wonder, are they okay? And then we make that effort to make that connection somehow again. You see them walking the prom or whatever it is. So there's a lot of other thinking outside that you wouldn't have had to do before. But the staff are really good at doing that, to be honest. That's their idea more than mine, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny. I had it in the Portershed. I had a member come back, and he was at his desk, and wasn't that great? And 2 days later he was gone, and he didn't come back, and I got a bit nervous. So I called him and said, you know, you left, did you feel unsafe? You know, was it something to do with the porter shed? And he said, oh no, Mary, it wasn't the porter shed, it was the world. And he just had to retreat for a couple of weeks to come back out again. It is a bit about being patient about that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we were chatting at lunch, Grania, you told us about all kinds of amazing things happening with Raw Chocolate. So I guess the question was, like, what are the trends in chocolate, and where will we find you this Christmas season?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of trends happening. People especially want to support local Irish businesses. That was huge for us for when we set up as well, that people wanted something Irish. Raw chocolates, obviously, people, even if they don't know the story behind it, they know it's an Irish product from the name. And yeah, we're just working with that. We're working with a lot of Irish other producers, so we're supporting that. And that's kind of the main trend that we're trying to follow along. And then the exciting things, yeah, we're going to be in Brown Thomas, Galway in 2 weeks' time. So our first ever concession, which will be a really, really, really nice time for us to finally not have to talk to our customers through social media or email or phone calls, that now we can actually smile at them and we can actually greet them, which is going to be huge. It's a very, very exciting move for us.
And that is taking the Meet the Maker to a whole new level, right? So you've got to go into Brown Thomas, Galway to meet this maker, which will be really fun. And June, your community kind of also moving into merchandise, and lots of charity going on here. And when Grania talked about supporting local, it just brought me to you right away, because you spoke about how you really pushed the local shopping local in Lahinch, I guess all over Ireland, really.
Everywhere, absolutely. I think it's very important, and people realise that now more than ever. You know, that the multinationals, the Amazons and all these, they'll be fine, but we need to support our own, which is very important.
Yeah. And do you want to tell us a little bit about this crazy swim you're doing coming up in December?
In December, absolutely. This is my second year fundraising for the Midwest Simon community. So I will start on the 1st of December until the 21st. 3 swims a day on Spanish Point Beach. If anybody would like to join me, you'll find it all on Snobby Sosta's Instagram page. But it's 9:15, 1:15 and 4:15 daily, 63 swims in 21 days. And I have set a target of €50,000 to raise for the Simon community. Amazing. And any support would be greatly appreciated. And we also recorded a beautiful single, a Tommy Fleming song called Don't Give Up Till It's Over. So I think it's a very appropriate song for anybody going through a hard time as well. And we have that CD which will be launched tomorrow night, and the single will be €5. And 100% of the proceeds will go to the Simon community.
That's a fantastic fundraise. I mean, it's well done. And
thank you. Well, it's always nice to give something back. And I think everybody goes through a hard time at one point or another. Nobody escapes this life without walking a step in pain. So it's nice if you can to give something back.
No, absolutely. And I know you've traveled to Portmarnock. We talked about that, and we've met you on Blackrock, out in Salt Hill or Ladies Beach. So is your plan to travel around to the different beaches around Ireland?
Yeah, I will. I'll get to as many as I can in the next 12 months. I suppose I hope to make it to as many swim groups as possible and promote the benefits of sea swimming and mental health awareness, I suppose, you know.
And what do you think about that? Like, I swim myself a little bit. I'm like dip, but the benefits of sea swimming, that whole thing about leaving it on the shore, like.
Absolutely. I think, you know, there are some mornings for me where I'm tired going down to the beach, and I always have to remind myself of how I feel when I come out of the water. No matter what your mood, I think if you're feeling low, you'll feel better. And if you're feeling great, you'll feel even better again. You know, you never regret it once it's done. I think you know that too.
You don't feel bad coming out of the water ever.
You never feel bad, you know, and no matter what the weather. And also, I suppose it's all about, for me, it's about the community. You know, there wouldn't be a Snobby Saucer without the community who are behind me every day, and we help each other. And the fact that we have men in our group, I think, is great too, because I was talking to a lovely young man yesterday, and he was telling me about a couple of swim groups where the men are not welcome at all. You know, and he was saying that 2 different groups that he tried to join, and they absolutely said, oh, this is ladies only, and I couldn't believe it. And yesterday morning on Spanish Point Beach, we were outnumbered by the men, which I thought was wonderful. For the first time in 2.5 years, we had more men than we had women at the beach, which was great.
Which actually, I think that, because when you think of mental health and men, that's
Yes.
great to see that they're
Yeah,
coming to the fore and
absolutely.
knowing the benefits
Yeah.
of it. Which
Because
is
sometimes
yeah.
men find it hard to talk, I suppose, you know,
Yeah.
having lost my own husband to suicide, I know that. And it's good to see them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like your community has helped so many, and now it's
Yes,
evolved so much.
yes.
It's like 360, right?
Yeah,
So like so much to be proud of and well done.
thank you so much.
So Rona, my teens want to know, when will the pizzeria be open again?
It's a great question. We hope, look, as soon as possible. So at the moment, we are doing the kits or DIY kits out of the restaurant Monday to Wednesday, and then we operate a takeaway Wednesday to Sunday. So it's pretty mad in there at the moment, but we are looking at, we have a place found to move the kits out of. So talking early next year, hopefully have the pizzeria back open, back doing its thing.
Brilliant. And then does anyone have any HR tips for recruiting, right? So, you know, as HR professionals listening here today, and myself as a manager of like, you know, where are you finding candidates? Where should we be looking? Anyone that got away? Anyone that should have got away, you know, yeah, any positive HR tips that we can share to help people out there in the recruitment world?
I use social media quite a bit because it's building our community that are already familiar with us, that probably know our story and that know our ethos. And from linking in there through social media, we can get people that would probably be on the same kind of interest of us. And that's worked really well for us today.
How about you, Kevin?
COVID has been a nightmare for me hiring staff, because only two things I used to do was shake their hand and see if they could walk fast. And if they gave me a firm handshake and they could walk fast, the two of them, they'd get a trial no matter what they were like. And now I can't shake their hand and I don't see them walking because I have nowhere for them to walk to.
Oh, yeah.
So it's absolutely ruined it for me personally. And my general manager and Eve was because I would, if I met somebody to give me a nice firm handshake, they walked away fast, be like, actually, yeah, come on in for a trial. And he'd be like, how did this work? I said, no, it just worked. But now what we have to do is just rely on social media and that we're a good company to work for. You know, I hope that we have a proven record in that, and that's probably going to stand to us to keep getting staff. It's been difficult. We've lost a really good baker, Martina, who I'd have huge time for. Her work-life balance during COVID, so she's gone off working in a factory now. Yeah. No matter what I could do, I couldn't keep her. So trying to find somebody for her to replace. So things like that is definitely difficult. But again, we try and be a really good company to work for. So if you are looking for a job, we are a really good company to work for. Yeah, so that's it.
You'll have to have them meet them on the prom. You'll have to have a little stand.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Good idea.
It's funny you say that about walking. My sister, who used to run the HR department in the Armada, and she'd always say to people, you know, especially in functions when we would do big wedding receptions for 300 people, and she'd say, you have to walk like your skirt is on fire.
Oh yeah.
You know, speed.
Yeah.
And the first thing she'd look at just before the interview as they're walking, the speed.
Yeah. I used to work with a guy when I was a restaurant manager in the Greyhound Stadium. It was kind of fast-paced service, but I used to be a food runner with him, and so I used to walk on his heels to get him to go fast so I could go faster.
Yeah.
And he was, without doubt, he was the worst person I ever worked with at the very beginning, and now we're quite close friends. He lives outside the world, but like he was one of the best people I ever worked with by the time we left the part company 2 years later.
Yeah.
And it's just because hospitality is fast paced, you know, depending on what you're doing. Like, you know, if you have to move fast.
It's a great tip for any candidates out there to know, like, to walk fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't walk in your heels now. But.
Yeah. They'll all come in flats. How about you, Ronan?
Yeah, similar to that. I think just being a good employer as well and looking after people and treating people right. I think word of mouth, no matter what, will always be the most powerful tool out there, whether it's a good review on being a good restaurant or it's a good employer. You know, I think even all of our staff, a lot of them actually are related in some way, as in one of them, our first person we took on in the kitchen, his brother now works for us like 4 years later, you know. So a lot of people like that either recommend friends or like-minded people because, again, they hear you're a decent person to work for. It's a good place to look after you. They treat you right. And I think anybody wants to work somewhere they're looked
It's
after
very
and feel
important how
rewarded.
you treat people.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
yeah.
You know,
And that culture piece, the vibes, I guess, within an organization, have you found that they come back for that energy, don't they?
Yeah.
Instead of the main things.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, we talked about, I guess, attracting staff and the challenges there. So I think we've got that covered. And then, I guess, for our own selves, and this is where I was, as you come out of COVID, like, is there anything? So we know we're going to keep walking, but is there anything that you see? Like any brick walls that you're trying to get over? What's your biggest challenge right now?
Ours is probably that extra capacity of trying to grow into that next stage where we can put more systems in place, we can have a bit more control and give. I really push that nobody ever works over 39 hours except me. But, I try and give them a work-life balance. I am able to give pastry chefs a 9-to-5 job basically, which is very rare, so I'm stealing them from the rest of the
Oh no.
but no, it works quite well. It's just trying to keep that balance there, trying to keep a good work-life balance, because it's so important, and to have like work isn't everything to everyone, and you have to have something else going on. So that's my aim. It's just pushing us towards, we can put in systems that can help give everyone a proper work-life balance.
Yeah. How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I suppose like I call it like our biggest store in Salt Hill. Like we've decided to basically gut that there. We did it there, started 2 nights ago. We'll gut the back half, put in a bakery. The bakery was never for the correct capacity, so that's been done. And I pulled our manager aside. So like last November was actually one of those times. So November is generally a bad month for the business. We actually made money in Salt Hill for the first time in 4 years. So I was like looking at this. How do we create a better thing? So she's gone off and she has her wish list. So we're putting in a completely new coffee bar that would make life easier for the staff to work in. And that obviously goes back to retaining staff. But that's probably our biggest challenge at the moment, because it's a big change to go from 90 seats down to 30 seats. And the offering is going completely different. So if you're in ground, it'll still be obviously of the standard that we've always been producing, but it's completely different offering.
Yeah.
So it's keeping me awake a little bit at night now, but that's probably the biggest challenge right now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was so busy during lockdown. I mean, like we would all go to Ground and Co for coffee on the way out Salt Hill, and the huts you put outside and everything.
Yeah.
Like you really did accommodate your customers. And I think that will stand true now as we emerge from it. You're kind of loyal to the people who stuck with you through it, which is brilliant.
Yeah. And we wouldn't be here without those people, to be honest. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important to change.
And so, June, do you think you'll be building a team?
Will I be building a team? Probably not. No.
How are you going to pack those 5,000 calendars you told me?
Yeah, I know. Did I say 5,000? Yes, well, actually, I have a lovely woman who helps me one day a week, and that's wonderful. But other than that, I probably do most of it on my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's busy. There's the social media side has really taken off, as you know, almost 25,000 followers. So the last 2 weeks, I've gotten up every morning at 5 o'clock. And I do 2 hours. My daughter is 13, and before she gets up for school, I do 2 hours replying to messages. People message every day. I get lots of messages, people sharing very personal stories, and I get up in the morning and I have my tea and I have a quiet house and I reply to all my messages. I very rarely miss a message. Yeah. And I would do those 2 hours, and then I put away my phone once my daughter gets up and she goes to school, and I'll do my swim, and then I'll do my admin and do my other little bits and pieces.
It's a full-time job.
It's busy when you're doing it on your own. Yeah. You have the likes of the Armada, this big team of people, and you all have big teams around you, but I'm one person trying to do everything. And it's busy, but I enjoy it. I'm doing something I love, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've seen on your Instagram where you're saying, I've got all these messages and I'll respond in the morning, because we love to see you dressed up heading out, and then you're like, tomorrow I'll get back. But that's phenomenal to reply to each DM, because it's a lot, right?
Yeah. It's a lot.
And you probably made so many connections and stories being told with the private messages coming through and telling them.
Absolutely. And sometimes the bravest thing somebody can do is ask for help. I know that.
Yeah.
From my own story. So it's nice when people reach out, and I'm not a trained counsellor, but sometimes I can point them in the right direction, whether it's Pt2 house or
Yeah, perfect. That's really, it's super interesting. And for you, Ronan, what's happening in Dobros then?
What's happening with Dobros? What's
Oh,
not now? I suppose we're trying to set up that production facility similar to Grania, a separate space where we can make all of our kits out of, and finally get the restaurant reopened. But we are working on a product for retail at the moment, which is definitely super exciting. A space where we see we can hopefully drive the standards of food in the retail setting. Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge is just trying to grow a team. We're going to be out towards the Athenry direction. So trying to manage a couple of different areas. You've obviously a couple of places and a couple of teams. So it's going to be new for us to do that. And try to keep the team motivated, keep the same standards of quality, keep the same, all the same standards that we have here in our restaurant in town.
Yeah, it's funny. I had that same challenge with the Portishead, because we're going to 3 buildings, and suddenly all of these, we're quite organic and very casual in our operations. And now I feel like I have to be a grown up And it kind of sucks a little bit, like just that whole planning and preparation and having policies and procedures. And but I guess it's a good sign, right? We're all growing up. So I'm going to turn to the audience for some questions. This is there's a top hat. I don't know.
This will become clear. Mary, I wish I had questions. That's not to say the comments aren't busy, because they're all just dumping praise on you, essentially. Okay, we've got 4 saints here who are ready for sainthood. So if you ever need to pick me up, folks, it's definitely worth getting the team here to copy and paste them. That's my HR tip, by the way. I once had a line manager once who encouraged me to create a praise folder in my inbox. Whenever you get a nice email saying you did a good job, stick it in the praise folder. Forget about it until you have that tough day where something didn't go well. Somebody said, go in there and you can find out nice things that other people have said about you. There's loads of them here for you.
Wow.
Okay, but I don't want to waste your time, because I want to bring it back to the topic of today's session. Keeping connected in a hybrid working environment. So you had to let staff temporarily go while you closed. You had to discourage members from coming along when the restrictions wouldn't allow. And I'm just wondering, do you have any tips for us, I suppose, as in an HR context, about staying in touch with people you're no longer seeing day to day or week to week?
Keeping the connection is such an important, hospitality, connection, people. It's the biggest thing for us, as any of us operating them. So the tip to do it is, I suppose, just to, for me, certain days when I would have felt down or whatever during COVID, it was that thing going, okay, well, they're putting something in a WhatsApp group. What can I do? Oh, okay, let's do the yoga exercise that they're on about. And obviously, I'm not very good at yoga, so they'd get a great kick out of my photo, sent it in after yoga. But it kept the connection and the conversation going for everybody. And then you could spot if somebody wasn't getting involved in that WhatsApp group, and you kind of go, okay, better check in then maybe tomorrow. And there was a lot of that going, just seeing how things are. And they're like, yeah, grand, I'm out cutting the turf or whatever it might have been that the reply was, but it was just making sure they were okay. And that's a big thing. It's, I suppose, making respect for staff that work with you and for you.
Yeah, I think just prioritizing the time. I think making time for each other, exactly. And I think we all get so caught up in our day to day, and time will just fly. Before you know it, it's Christmas, and it's whatever, Valentine's or whenever it is, and time will just fly. But just locking in a time to make time for each other, and a time for either socializing with each other if possible, or it's an online event, whatever works for each other. But I think just making that time and locking it in, I think, is the first step. It's important, really important.
What strikes me the way you answered that, or the way you answered any of Mary's questions, was it seems to me your businesses and organizations are rooted in human, right? The human being and the values associated with that. And I'm just wondering, you employ a lot of people, so you bring new people constantly into your organization or into your workplace. How do you get them up to speed on the values that you have, right? How do you instill in them the importance that you put on humanity? Because it is coming through, and it's coming through strongly in the comments. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so for me, it was very, very important. I wanted that from the get-go. So I actually brought in an outside HR consultant, and we built up a full handbook. So it's like, I think it's like a 50-page handbook of all of our beliefs, mainly mine from the get-go, and what I wanted, whether it be the recycling, how we treat each other, what we wear. So it's all written down, because I remember I'd worked at jobs before where things sometimes weren't written down and it wasn't very clear, but it also then gave people an introduction in. So there's a video, they can watch it, they straight away know what I wanted from it. We go through the whole handbook piece by piece. And then when they come in, it's about welcoming them in. So we get them into the WhatsApp group. You were talking about the praise folder. Every time we get a nice review, it's screenshotted or taken a photo of, it's sent into the group. So everyone gets a boost from that, not just that one person that read it. So there's a lot of things like that, and trying to integrate all the teams, which for me is going to be a challenge now, because we have our production team, we have our packing team, and now also we're going to have our sales team. So they're all going to be quite divided, and it's about creating those links and making sure everyone can still speak together, they can ask each other questions, and that everyone is still just being human again with each other.
Grania, that's so impressive that you started, like a small company started by rooting it in those kind of values. I'm really impressed. Now, hat, back to the hat. Why does it exist? Because it's time for our first tombolo. I think that's the word. Can you put it up on screen, please? Because we're about to award 2 spot prizes. These are all our delegates, and we have 2 boxes of Gras chocolates. Tell us, what's the best flavor in the box?
My favorite is mint to be, but
that could be divisive.
The most popular is definitely a little bit salty, so our salt.
I like the sound of that.
Island sea salt.
Well, appropriate for where we are today. Okay, could you spin the tombolo and we'll award our first box of chocolates? Nevin. This really is Marty Whelan vibe.
Yeah.
And our first one, a taste of mint and or salt, is Uh-oh. Donna Kavanagh in DCU. There's a box of chocolates winging its way to you. Okay, second one, please. Give us some of the other flavors, Grania. While we're waiting.
We have the
Do you have any Turkish delight?
We do around Valentine's Day, so we'll have one coming
God.
again. My favorite.
And the next person to get a box of chocolates winging their way is going to go to Trinity, back up to Dublin as well for Rosaline Gleeson. Well done, Rosaline. That's something to look forward to. And I'm afraid that draws this panel to a close. The hat goes back in the box for the next spot prize. But I just really want to warmly thank you for participating in today, because the word inspirational kept coming up in the chat, and I certainly they are inspirational stories. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.